Chris Chappell. I'm here to show you some wheelchair pointers that I actually learned after 20 years in a chair. So it's unique for everybody, and everybody has sort of a customized setup in their wheelchair, but I'm going to give you kind of some basics of what I do and what I use and what's worked for me over all these years. I will say that most PTs and OTs and nurses will have certain recommendations for certain types of chairs they like, certain types of styles they like, whether they're power chairs or manual chairs. I use what's called a manual chair. Manual chair is something that you push around by yourself. And you can see it's just essentially like a bicycle. What it ends up becoming is really, it's like a patient's bicycle. It's made out of essentially bicycle type parts. It's got a frame on it made out of titanium. It's got, in my case, 26-inch wheels, which are standard mountain bike tires. You can get different size wheels for it, depending upon what your style, what your flavor is. You can get different colors. You can get everything really customized to whatever you would like. And your OT and your PT are really the specific people that are going to give you the recommendations and the measurements for your chair. When you're first injured, these chairs come with a wide variety of assortments that help you kind of stay in your chair and position your patient. Usually they come with side bolsters, which tend to be on these seat backs. They might wrap around the patient, and they might kind of, get them a little bit tighter, because if they don't have any abdominal strength, they need something to kind of keep them steady and keep them positioned. Usually on the back, you might see push handles. Push handles look like little handlebars that come out that allow for a caregiver or nurse, PT, OT, etc., to push them around. But with those assortments, with those extras, there comes a lot of weight. So you might have straps around the patient. You might have, like I said, you might have wheelchair or armchair cup holders. You might have bars to keep them, solidified. Because when you first get injured, you can't necessarily lift yourself up and do things, but the bars they have with them, the handlebars in the back, help you kind of get around. So all of those things will be assessed, usually by your PT, OT, nursing staff, etc., to kind of give you an idea of what's going to work for you specifically. Other things you're going to look for, things like rake or the angle of where your feet are. In my case, I like to have things kind of compact. If I'm getting under a table, I want to be able to fit my legs under that table. If I want to be able to move around and spin around, I need to be able to be not as sort of recliner-like, because you could have your legs out in front of you probably 3 or 4 feet and be very recliner-like, but you can't move around so well. I also like to have a chair back that kind of sits me up and keeps me really kind of a straight posture. Again, because I need to be able to move around. Every body mechanic that I use, shoulders, wrists, hands, etc., are all part of how I move. If I have a power chair, all I'm really doing is using a joystick. And a joystick was the same thing as you would see like on a video game. It's really something that will be customized to you, but it's set up really to make just natural wrist movements, or very, very small movements can make you go. You even have wheelchairs with head movements, so you can get a sip and puff chair where it's a straw that might drive you around, or it might be just a head nod. There are literally thousands of options for wheelchairs. It all depends upon the patient and their needs. Additionally, you have things that are really important, like brakes. In my case, these are what's called scissor brakes. All they really do is just push them down, and they scissor against the tire, just as you would a regular pair of scissors. And you can release them with a pop-up of your wrist. So therefore you have the brake on the tire and or not on the tire. And you set them up in terms of how you want to position yourself. And you might, for example, in my case, back yourself up, get your casters in a way that's going to be positioned for most optimum stability. Then you'll be able to kind of move yourself around depending upon what you might need to do. Again, you release the brake, and you would release each brake, then you have freedom to move around. And each brake system is completely different. I've never seen 2 wheelchairs in 20 years with exactly the same setup. Some of them come with various types of disc brakes. You might have other types of sort of scissor brakes, some that are more power brake. There are literally thousands of options for them. So as you're discussing it with your patient, you'll want to be able to kind of weed it down to the things that they would like, things that are personal to them. And that's what I did with this chair. That's what I've done with my 3 different chairs that I have. I use them for different reasons and all for different functions depending upon what I'm doing. Whether I'm driving a certain car, whether I'm showering, It all really depends upon what you need it for, and different wheelchairs can be used for different things. They can be all customized depending upon what you might need. And some wheelchairs, I should say, are actually collapsible or foldable, so their foot plates will be completely different. In my case, I have a foot plate which is pretty standard. It just essentially goes, it's connected to the frame, and you can adjust it based upon these little knuckles here that you can release. You can actually raise and lower the foot plate depending upon what you might need. Once you get the chair set up though, to somebody's height, weight, etc., you don't tend to readjust it. It tends to stay perfect based upon that patient's foot angle, their leg angle, hip angle, etc. Once you get those measurements all set up and done, it's pretty consistent depending upon the kind of chair that you use. There's also different manufacturers of different chairs. So you can get them in aluminum, you can get them in mild steel, get them in titanium. Really, the sky's the limit depending upon what your budget is and what you're trying to do. So you have foot plates set up, you have casters. In this case, my casters you see here are red. They're called what's called frog legs. Now these are really old, and they're ones I've had for probably 15 years, but they're shock absorber type casters, meaning if I push down on them, they have a shock absorption system. So rolling over different types of surfaces, road surfaces, gravel, rock, dirt, etc., these frog legs, they actually adjust based upon what you're doing and your weight, etc. So if I happen to bounce forward, they will flex. Some people like them, some people don't. It all, again, depends upon what the flavor is of the patient and the guidance of the PT, OT, etc. So really all of these things are completely customizable. They're all unique to each patient, and they're all unique to each recommendation from the hospital, the living center, the nurse, etc. So really all this is kind of like buying a car. Depending upon what color you like, depending upon what kind of make and model you like, you can get whatever you want. If it fits you and you can get around as conveniently and as efficiently as possible, that's what I look for, and most patients do as well. There's different recommendations for each person on the planet, depending upon what they need. I wish you the best of luck. Hopefully those pointers were helpful. You guys have a good day and good luck.